show up with your hair hanging down. Move a little closer like you're moving right now. I don't have to understand. You don't get to give a damn after all you put me through. No, you don't get to. You don't get to.
Testing. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming out tonight to this open house and question and answer session. I'd like to introduce first our two panelists who are going to be answering questions, and then I'll explain to you a little bit about sort of the rules of engagement for this evening. My name's Troy Smith, and I'm the town manager here in Payson. And again, appreciate everybody coming out and taking an interest in your community. Mayor Tom Morrissey is here to answer questions, as is Kenny Evans with MHA. Tonight's forum is for the purposes of discussing the community center, which is a partnership being contemplated by the town of Payson and the MHA. This is a public event, and this meeting was noticed, and as a result of that, we need to try our best this evening to focus our questions to the topic of the community center and things related to the community center. You may have additional questions about other items. Myself and other council members and Kevin Arts, our deputy town manager, here. If we don't have the opportunity or cannot answer your question this evening, please feel free to find one of us and let us know what your question is, and we'll try to get back with you with some information as soon as we can. Our goal tonight is to provide you with information. That's the whole purpose of this evening's town hall event. We're not here to try to convince anyone of anything. We know you can formulate your own opinions. We would just like everyone to have the same factual-based information in order to formulate those opinions. So that is the purpose of tonight's meeting, is to answer questions and provide information.
I don't have a question, I just wanted to find out, are we going to do a pledge of allegiance?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
We are. We're going to do a prayer.
They call that a softball in show business. Thank you, sir. With no further ado, I will turn this over to Mayor Morrissey.
Thank you, Troy, and welcome everybody. Before we get started, I'm going to ask Apostle Roscoe to come to this podium and render a prayer of blessing in the meeting, after which I'll ask you all to stand and we'll salute the flag of the greatest nation God ever gave the world. So just hang in. Roscoe is going to render a prayer. Apostle Roscoe.
Praise the Lord. May we all stand and bow our hearts in humble submission. Father God, Adonai, Elohim, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, Ruach HaKadosh, the Holy Ghost, God Almighty, we thank you, God, for blessing us to be here today. Lord, we're asking for your blessings over this meeting, that truth can prevail. Lord, that we can go about making a better Payson and Rim country, Lord, as a result of this meeting. Lord, we're asking right now for your shalom, your perfect peace. God, that everyone that's in here, that we will all be civil. Lord, that we will do what you want us to do. Again, you are the Lord. You are the owner of this planet, and you've blessed us to be tenants. Bless us to take care of this planet and of this beautiful town of Payson, Arizona, in the United States of America, in Gila County in Arizona. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Is Jim Muir in the house? Jim Muir? Where are you, Jim? Will you step up, will you come up to the podium there and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Jim Muir is a double Purple Heart recipient, everybody. Come on up. Come on up here.
Those of you that are military and have cover, you can leave your cover on and salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, one more. Will all veterans in this room stand and be recognized? All veterans stand and be recognized. So it's my pleasure to be here this evening for a lot of things. I feel very, very blessed to be the mayor of this wonderful town known as Payson. And we are a small town, but we are a spirited town. And we like to express our opinions. And our opinions get expressed on social media and on the radio, and in some cases in the newspapers. And I've been noticing that there's been a lot of misinformation, misunderstanding, and I feel that it's my obligation to stand before you with former Mayor Evans and answer your questions about the proposed project. Now, I want to emphasize proposed. There's been nothing signed. The only thing that is in writing and is available, it's a public document, is a memorandum of understanding directing the town to meet with the RCEA, RCEF, and negotiate a contract that could possibly produce a community center and all that goes with it. So that's where it's at. It has gone nowhere beyond that. This is your town, folks. I work for you. My obligation is to you. My obligation, besides protecting the town, is also to protect opportunities that might present themselves. So I feel that if we have all information, everything, and I like to use the word transparency, you know my wife is really tired of hearing it. My wife's sitting right over there looking at me right now, shaking her head. But transparency will solve every problem that could arise in moving forward with this. If it works for the town, and if it works for the RCEA and the RCEF, then there might be a deal. If it doesn't, there won't. And I want to assure everybody that is it. There's nothing hidden. There's no deals that have been made. Okay? This is something that has potential. Now let me ask, how many people, just you a show of hands, how many of you want a community center? Show your hands. Okay, that's a pretty good group. How many of you don't want a community center? Okay. Well, it looks like the majority want a community center. But hopefully, by the end of this meeting, you'll have a better understanding of where we're at, what the potential is, and what it is that is going to happen or not happen as we go forward. So I would like to ask former Mayor Evans, Kenny, would you like to come up and say a few words and open this? And then we're going to open it for questions.
Thank you, Mayor Morrissey. I can't even say my name in a few words, so it's going to be a little longer than a few words, but thank you for this opportunity. One of the challenges that we face as a community has always been that we have a big gap between what our citizens want and what our citizens are capable and willing to pay for. As a mayor for 4 terms, I was able to see that up close and personal many times, just as Mayor Morrissey can see it. It's easy to want something. It's much more difficult to want it badly enough to be able to pay for it. And so as we move forward, I think we need to break this meeting into segments because I'm sure there'll be some questions about how we got to where we are today. But as we move forward, one of the things I want to do is just start with where we are today and where we anticipate going. As of the first of this year, the RCEA, RCEF were moving forward with a plan that would build ball fields and a park on 26 acres of the roughly 260 acres that they own and control. That park component ended up being, as a result of discussions a year ago, last January, February, March, and April, ended up including a section on the north end that was going to be for a multi-generational center. We called it a multi-generational center, not a community center, because the components that we're going to go into and make up that multi-generational center were going to be focused not just on senior citizens, but on senior citizens, on families, on families with young kids, on young people. And so we were looking at a multi-generational center on that site. As we move forward with those plans and discussions, approximately January of this year, toward the middle or the end of January of this year, we were approached by the town, by a town councilman and Mr. Smith, and they indicated that there was an interest on the part of the town of Payson, the corporate body, in looking at what we were planning to do on that site and what they could do to influence the components of things that would be on it. Those discussions moved to a second stage after, as Mayor Morrissey mentioned, after the town council voted to authorize a discussion, a discussion and agreement, a potential agreement that would come back to the council for their review about what components the town would like to see on that site and what components we could afford to build on that site. As we got deeply into that discussion, it became apparent that Parks and Rec wanted a survey of the community. They didn't want to just give us their opinion and the council's opinion, the total of 20 people in those two bodies, but wanted to be able to give us some sense of what the people in the community of Payson wanted. And so a survey was drafted, was sent out. 1,200 plus respondents replied to that survey. We also had handwritten copies that were available around town that we could have people fill out. We had subsequent surveys ready to go. As the analytics, as the totals for those surveys came in, it became apparent that what we envisioned on that site and what the town people wanted on that site were not necessarily the same. There were two big concerns that were identified clearly. Number one, there was a great concern about traffic along Mud Springs. And so we looked at that and we thought, okay, we've got to address that issue. A community center or the multi-generational center that we were anticipating, or a community center that the town was anticipating, certainly would put a serious dent on the traffic impact along Mud Springs. And so we went back, we had our architects, our civil engineers, our engineers go back to work and tried to figure out, okay, what can we do that will mitigate this transportation issue? Simultaneously, the survey showed that there was a overwhelming support in the community for certain things that we had not included in the original plan for the park. And so we went back and we asked the architect and we asked the engineer to try to shoehorn, my farmer term for it, trying to figure out a way to get those different amenities into that limited space, that 26 acres. In the result, they came in. In the end, they came back with a result that is the diagram you have on the right side over here, and even it has been tweaked with a few additional things that people have brought up to our attention. So the traffic impact study, first of all, there's a lot of misinformation, and it's been there for the 22 years that I've lived in Payson about Mud Springs being punched through to 260. First of all, there's nothing the RCEA, RCEF, or could do to make that happen. That land is owned by the Forest Service and private individuals. Secondly, if it is ever in the future going to go forward, which it was part of a plan some 25 years ago, but if it were to ever go forward, it would be a Town of Payson initiative, not an RCEA, RCEF initiative. But we looked at it and said that's not a solution. That's not a way to handle that. So we've developed a plan that moves the items that would have more traffic on a consistent basis to the north edge along Granite Dells. And if you look at the diagram on the right-hand side, on the west side over here, you'll see that there's a parking lot up near the pickleball courts, near the volleyball courts, near the sand volleyball courts. So those areas and the now softball field that has replaced where the multi-generational center would go. Softball was one of those, I guess it shouldn't have been a surprise, but it was one of the issues that came back as being something that the community felt like needed to be a part of this site. To get all those pieces in there meant there was no room for a multi-generational center or a community center. And so we had to have the engineers evaluate the remainder of the 260 acres we have and say, where can we put a multi-generational center or a community center where it's going to serve the needs of the people, is not going to impact traffic, has access to infrastructure, and will be a huge feather in the town of Payson in its efforts at economic development, because people will see a progressive community with a beautiful community center on Highway 260. So that site was redesigned. We did the initial surveys to say, where can it fit? How can it be placed on that site? The building itself has grown from the roughly 40,000 square feet that we anticipated building a year ago to, by adding the additional items that the public wanted and that the town of Payson has requested, has now grown to some 65,000 square feet. So the footprint and the parking lot and all of the traffic flow that'll go with that consume a significant chunk of property on the corner of University Way and Highway 260. So that's where we are today. And as the mayor mentioned, we are in the process of having discussions. In fact, we're actually in the process of having discussions about how we're going to have discussions. So we know who's going to be participating and getting this piece of information, who's going to be participating and getting this information, and how are we going to collectively bring these together.
So I hope that that's the beginning of clearing up some of, I won't say all because we never get all, but that's just human nature. This hopefully clears up some of the questions and the misinformation that you've had. Are there any questions? If there are questions, I would ask you to keep them civil and be respectful. The same respect you would want. And Mike, do you want to come up to the microphone there? Mike White? Come on up to the microphone so everyone can hear you. And be civil, and let's get information. Let's find out everything we possibly can.
Yes, I would just like to know how many decisions are being based on that, what I believe is an ill-conceived survey. When I worked in industry as a quality engineer, I worked a lot with surveys, and that would have been considered a push survey, listing, would you like to have this, would you like to have that, and so on. Nothing about would you prioritize, are you willing to pay for. So everybody naturally would come back and say, yes, I would like to have all these things. So we're taking an ill-conceived survey, making decisions off that, which I think is really not the way to go. I would advocate instead having a more neutral third-party survey with more factual data, and use that to make decisions.
That's a good suggestion. And I would ask you if and when you come up to the microphone to identify yourself. That was Mike White, everybody. So just so you know who Mike White is. Well, it sounds to me like you want to see more opinions, and that's the reason why we're having this meeting tonight, so that we can get as many of you involved in the discussion on how this would proceed, should it proceed. So that's why I invite you to ask questions, and I can see you're lining up, so we're going to get some. But there's more to come, Mike, and there's more information that will be coming forth, and there'll be more expression of the will of the people. Okay, it's your town, folks, in case you don't know it, and I work for you, and I want you happy, all right? So I'm going to do everything I can so that you feel comfortable with the process, should we go forward. And I emphasize, should. This is not a done deal. This is in the process of, and I was talking with our town manager earlier, and Troy and I were talking about, the way things begin. In relationships, and being a guy, when you first become interested in someone, a woman, you take her to dinner, and then you take her to dinner again, and then you decide at some point in time to move forward with the relationship. So that's what we're doing. We are exploring the possibilities, and I'm going to. So your name and your question, is it for me or is it for former Mayor Evans?
Actually, for both.
Okay.
Mr. Evans, you said you were a mayor here for 4 terms. I'm not really sure how many terms you are currently a mayor.
It's my second term.
It's your second term. So
Yes.
there's 6 terms of mayors in here putting together all sorts as leadership for the people or the residents of the town. To tie into what that gentleman just said a second ago, you have this survey that was designed to get favorable responses. And yet, 4 terms for Mr. Evans, 2 terms for you, You come up with this beautiful design over here, but you leave crap for Mustang Park, for Rumsey Park. They're run down. Everybody wants something new because you've left, both of you as leaders have left this entire park situation to go in the toilet. I don't know if you ever go over to the restrooms, the graffiti, you've got things barred up, things are tore down. If you go to Mustang Park, you're going to kill yourself if you stand on that foam rubber. So why in God's name do we want to take the time and effort to develop all of this? You've already said you've been talking about this for a year, and you've done nothing for the other parks. Do something for that first, and will you address why you're not doing anything for the other parks? And I'd love to get your town manager involved with this as well, because he's the one that's going to be cutting the budgets. Thank you.
Well, okay. I could call the town manager to the stage, and he could tell you what I'm going to tell you. I don't disagree with you about the shape that Rumsey Park is in. Rumsey Park has been vandalized substantially. The toilet, the bathrooms, the toilet seats have been destroyed. It seems like there's a group in town that has a vendetta on Rumsey Park, and all of the damage and everything seems to have, it has increased. What I will tell you is that we are doing something about it, and we will bring to justice those that have destroyed the property there. You're exactly right. We are working on that. And I take it seriously, as does the town manager. I mean, this is something that is unacceptable. And there's a group that have been conducting all of the damage. And as I say, I'm not going to say anything more than that, but I will assure you there is something being done, and that park will be restored. I promise you that. I promise you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Hi. Your name?
My name is Emmy Spalding.
Hi.
And I grew up in this beautiful town. My parents lived here, my grandparents, and as far back as I can trace, we've called Payson home. When I moved back here after being gone for a while with my children, I found a different town, and I admittedly have struggled a lot with that. I grew up at Taylor Pool and Rumsey Park. From the time I was 4 years old till I was 17, I swam on the swim team. I was a lifeguard. It was my favorite summer job. And I was looking forward to coming back to this town, getting involved, and watching my children do the same. What I saw at Rumsey was really depressing, because as someone who loves Payson, it felt like there was no pride of ownership anymore. The money that's allotted to our town to maintain assets isn't being spent on the assets. It looks so old. The skate park is depressing. And I think what it draws is people don't feel proud of it. They don't feel happy to be there. It feels like the kind of place that nobody cares about anymore. And it's not an excuse to vandalize it. I appreciate your response about taking care of that, but that's not the whole issue. Watching Taylor Pool become condemned because it had fallen into disrepair is super discouraging, and it's difficult for me to get excited about new things, because I wonder how long will it take before that starts looking like Rumsey Park. I love this idea. My husband is the soccer coach, and they have nowhere to practice this week. They had to cancel practice this week because there's a football camp going on, and it left no sport fields available. And we're not allowed to use the Quanah fields for soccer, so your high school soccer team had to cancel. And that's a problem. This town needs more fields, but we also need a swimming pool. We need a swimming pool desperately. I'm advocating on behalf of water safety. As a lifeguard and someone who believes strongly in water safety, to have a community that's providing nothing for children to have swim lessons is an enormous problem. I take it personal. I have a daughter who's 10. I was hoping she'd be in swim lessons at swim team this summer. Providing nothing for them is so discouraging and upsetting. It should be a public health issue for water safety. You're pushing children and families to the lakes and rivers when kids are not strong swimmers and people don't have access to becoming strong swimmers. I see as a potential catastrophe. So I would just love to hear confirmation that the assets we do have are being addressed before we move on to that, which we need as well. I love this and I think it's great. I just don't see any hope for what we already have being brought up.
Okay, thank you. Former Mayor Evans is going to address that.
I would encourage you, when you get a break, to go up and look at the field over here, but there is a full-size soccer field, football field, as well as softball field that are part of this project that's under construction right now. Additionally, our discussions with the town of Payson started with the aquatic center. So the very first issue that was brought to our attention was, we need to talk with you about expanding the multi-generational center so that it will have a full aquatic center in it. And so that was one of the very first discussions we had back in January. That's an expensive component, but we were willing to undertake that as part of the project and have done so.
Okay, I hope that addressed some of that. The thing that you need to keep in mind is that what we're discussing here, the construction, and as we go forward, in this particular instance, is not going to cost the town anything to construct. It's not. Look, you know something I don't know. But that is what we're proceeding with. Now, that doesn't mean that excuses what happened to Taylor Pool. I mean, that's something that's very disturbing. But Taylor Pool wound up as a biohazard. I mean, it wasn't safe, and it had deteriorated. The pool is 40 years old, and it had deteriorated to the point that it wasn't safe to open. And then when you bring in, even though it was grandfathered, but then you bring in the Americans with Disabilities Act aspect of it too, that became very, very serious. So what we're talking about here is finding a way, finding a solution so that we do have a pool. You know, I personally, I'd like to see us have a splash pad, you know, for the little ones, to have as much water activity as we possibly can, because it is the healthiest way to exercise. And even with kids running through a splash pad, they're moving around, and they're cool. Young lady?
My name is Donna Bart, and I have two very simple questions. The first one is, you said before that no deals have been signed. And if that's the case, why is the land already cleared?
The land, well, that's simple. That's a simple answer. The land is an SLE. It's a separate legal entity. The land, the town does not control that. That was a decision made by the RCEA and the RCEF. And I don't know if former Mayor Evans wants to address that, but that has been something that has been, has been controversial. But I can't tell you, why or when or how, because the town of Payson does not control that. What we're trying to arrive at here is to clear the air on exactly who controls what and how we proceed or not proceed. But so I can't answer that question for you. And if the former mayor chooses to, do you want to answer it, Kenny?
The initial clearing of land was done because the local contractor was willing to do that free of charge for us, and we took advantage of that $60,000 donation of labor and materials. We've continued that process and are now spending, I think we've got people in the audience that may correct my numbers, but I think we're well into $1 million, $1.1 million into developing it so that there will be those amenities that we've talked about over here. The question at hand is there is no agreement between the town and us about the ongoing operation of that facility. And so your question is, how can there be a park being built if there's no agreement yet? It's because we continue those discussions and we continue to amend that plan to try to put into it the things that the people of Payson want.
The next question, very simple. If this goes through, I live a block from Mud Springs, 1 block from the park. If it goes through, I'm concerned about the lighting. The lighting at Hospice, which is very close, in their parking lot, it goes along with the dark sky regulations.
Yes.
It has night lights. Can you assure me that everything lit up in this park will follow suit?
The park does not have any, like the ball fields over here, does not have aerial lighting, and the lighting that is there will be low density lighting and low lighting on the walkways to keep that night light and to meet the dark sky requirements.
Okay, and that includes the parking lot, right?
That includes the dark sky, the dark sky requirements for the parking lot.
Thanks.
Okay. Now, I see in a line that's going almost out to the door, so we're only going to be here till 9 o'clock, and if I can stand up that long. So I'd ask that you make your questions and your statements as brief as you possibly can, but get in the questions. Yes, sir.
My name is Barton Butts. I'm a United States Marine, retired, and living on Mud Springs, right across from this project. I know they're trying to follow all of the rules and the laws, but today it was a cloud of dust. They weren't keeping it watered down and so on, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I see something that is founded in our constitutional republic, representative of the people, by the people, and for the people. I've heard 25 years this discussion and things have been going on. I hear of a survey of 1,200 that was sent out. I look here and I don't see anywhere near 25,000 people that are in this town. Our constitutional representative republic laid it out that the final authority was to be with we, the people, not just our elected officials, not just for those who are appointed positions. You put something on the ballot. You take something and you propose it, and then you put it out and you let the people in a vote. And we have them going on every year. The concern I have here is that we're hearing this and that and a private entity and individuals and so on. We're not hearing from we the people. I think it's time. That's my suggestion.
I believe we're hearing from the people tonight. That's why we're here, right? We the people. The country is built on 3 words: we the people. That is why we are here and discussing. And I want you to know that every question you ask has weight. I've asked you to come. I've invited you to this meeting because, again, elected officials serve the people. The town staff serves the people. I will never be involved in anything that is not supported by the Constitution. I believe in the utmost in we the people. So, and I'm not just blowing smoke at you, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Kenny, you want to say something?
Again, I'll try to give a short response, but roughly 4 decades ago, the state legislature determined that it was important for communities to do exactly what the gentleman said just a minute ago, to have input into the direction their community was going. And so they passed a requirement that every municipality in the state of Arizona would have, every 10 years, would have on the ballot a general plan that was specific enough that the people could understand it. It wasn't enough to allow the elected officials, the staff of the town to drop a plan and say, okay, people vote for it or against it. It was required that they go to and not just get the support of, but solicit the input of the citizens of the community every 10 years. 1994, we had a general plan. It was supported, 285 people participated in the process of drafting it. It was supported by 68% of the people. 2004, another large group came together, presented a plan, and the voters voted 70% in favor of it. 2014, when I was mayor, we spent almost $300,000 hiring, because the state required it, hiring outside solicitors to go to community members, and some 785 of them participated in drafting this plan that said, these are the components that should be part of the growth for the next 10 years in the town of Payson. And the people voted 78% in favor of that. And so, yes, you're right. Every 10 years, the legislature has required that we go to you, the people, and find out what it is you like and don't like about the growth of the community.
Next up, would you lean into the mic so we can all hear you, if you don't mind? Tell us your name.
My name's Tara Ormond. My name's Tara Ormond.
Hi.
I've pretty much grown up in Payson my whole life. I learned to swim here. I've been on swim team since 3rd or 4th grade. When I heard last year about the thoughts of this whole center, it kind of brought a lot of joy in, because I know how much the Taylor Pool's kind of run down, and there's I'm gonna have people that disagree with me, but there was problems with the building when Taylor Pool was built. It's not the fact that we tried to maintain it for a while, and yeah, we stopped, but when we first built the pool, it wasn't built how it was supposed to be. It didn't meet requirements it was supposed to meet. So even after maintaining it for so long, it was bound to need to be torn down eventually. It was gonna need to be rebuilt and remodeled. So with this center, because I do plan on pursuing in swim team, I did it last year, I love racing a lot. With this center, how would it accommodate with a swim team if there were to build one?
We've asked several of the people in the community, like you, that are actively participating in the swim team or supporting it as parents. Forrest Gressley has taken on a task that we gave him to say, come to us and tell us how many lanes, how long, what other amenities besides just a hole in the ground with water in it do we need to have a aquatic center that we can be proud of and that the young people can use year-round. And so we're taking those into consideration, and we're incorporating those into the facility that will be built for you.
Thank you. And I just have one more quick question. So you were mentioning a splash pad, and now I'm only 14 years old, but I know quite a few people who don't accommodate to splash pads. It would be great for little kids, but as far as most of our teenage community, we've got a few pickleball courts and tennis courts, which we put a lot of use into. We love them a lot, but a splash pad wouldn't really accommodate us. And I feel like how Emmy said with the boys soccer team, I did get asked by Billy Spalding to help manage the team, and I'm really excited to help, but like she said, it was canceled this week because there wasn't enough fields for us to do anything. So with a splash pad, I don't understand how that would help out with the community as much as other things might be able to.
Okay, I got an answer for you. I'm the mayor of the whole town, and part of my constituency are little kids and young families and grandparents who care for those children. And they have come to me and asked me to build a splash pad. Of course, I'm one vote on the council, but I felt that it warranted, it was worthy, and it's not that expensive when you think about it. But when you're the mayor of the whole town, you have to consider everybody in the town, and that's what I'm doing, including you. So I'm hoping and I'm working with the prospect of having a pool, having aquatics back in this town. It's not something that you can snap your fingers and do, because we just have so much resources, and just so much money. There's just so much that we can do, and there's so much that we can't do. But every service that we provide costs money, and we have to be able to pay for it. And it seems like there's never enough services, and there's always never enough money. But I reiterate, I'm the mayor of the whole town, including the little kids. So I'll do everything I can to make that happen for them, as helping you to get a pool to swim in. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name is Tim Welsh. My wife and I live on East Miller, and I have a very selfish question. What's going to happen to East Miller with all this? To me, it looks like it's going to become a raceway or a giant traffic jam.
Okay, former mayor?
East Miller has, I think, has been on the town's plan to get improved for a very long time. As you're aware, it's not only like this, but it's like this as well, which means it's a very dangerous street. And I think one of the things that we would be supportive of would be putting some kind of signs on there that say local traffic only, and try to limit that traffic. Part of the challenge, as you're keenly aware, is that APS has put those monster metal poles, which mean if you were trying to dodge a vehicle coming the other direction on that narrow street, you would have a really hard time doing it. And so I think one of our suggestions would be to look at first improving the edges of that street that are starting to crumble, and number two, to put a local traffic only sign at both ends of Miller.
Next. Your name, sir?
Jeff Robbins. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you.
Yes.
It's an informational meeting, so I brought some information.
Good.
And I have a question. If everyone in this room doesn't understand that Payson needs an indoor aquatic center because of our seasonal weather, you're simply out of touch. I mean, you're just simply out of touch. And I frankly don't care who the hell pays for it. I hope to God you two guys can get together, figure it out, and build us a needed community center and a park. Kiss, make up, do what you got to do, but build the damn thing. We need it. And so I brought some information.
The darn thing.
I'm not going to say crap tonight.
Okay, go ahead.
In rural America, public and private partnerships is the model going forward in community centers and parks. It's the only way forward. In many communities in Montana and Wyoming, that are very seasonal. I've had very successful public-private partnerships, and many of them are cost neutral and some are cost positive. So those that worry about costs, I can provide you many examples of cost positive projects with community centers. These are called PPPs, and they've been the model building parks going forward since 1974. And you'd be surprised to know Flagstaff has 15, Sedona has 9, Tucson has 4, and our very own Payson, we have 6 PPPs in our town already. So this is not a new idea nor concept, and it's frankly the way for rural America to build infrastructure they don't have the funds to build. So thank you, Mr. Evans, and your organization for offering to do this, and you and most of the business people in rural America have found a way to do this for their communities. Property values. Parks and community centers, economic research has demonstrated the consistency that homes and properties located near parks and community centers have much higher values, in some cases up to 40% more. Families looking to come up here would seek those places to live, and your home would be worth up to 40% more. So if you live near that area, you have to endure a little construction for a while where you're going to cash in when it's done. All studies show that an increase in community engagement, parks, community involvement in greening of vacant urban land, studies have shown this will actually decrease crime substantially. That's in both community centers and parks. Parks and community centers strengthen local economies and create job opportunities. Parks attract residents, businesses, increase revenues for towns, and spur private investment and increase job opportunities. Those things are important to our town, and those things are the result of your collaboration. Parks encourage active lifestyles, and they reduce health costs. All national studies show that the average person saves $1,500 per year in health costs. I do. One more statement. I have a question.
Okay. Yeah, we want to get out of here by 9, Jeff. So.
The lake feature would provide a greatly needed fire suppression component on that side of town, that there's no static body of water to draw water from in the case of a fire. I think this is a great beginning for Payson to become a destination place and not a pass-through town. And my only question to you...
Okay, everybody, okay, wait. Okay, Jeff, you get to the question, if you will.
My question to you, sir, Mr. Morrissey. The MHA, RCF, and the SLE have had multiple meetings with town staff. You personally, the town counselors, the newspaper, they had a town survey. At this point, are you certain, or do you feel confident they have been transparent so far?
I feel confident with the transparency. You can never have enough transparency, Jeff, so I will push forward with transparency. Because I think transparency solves all the problems that are inherent in doing a project or attempting to do a project like this. Everybody has a right to know everything about what's to be done, how it's going to be done, who's doing it, why it's done, and what the product is.
I agree. Are you satisfied it's being done so far?
Yeah.
All right, very good.
Thank you. Alan, is that you? I can't see with the light in my eye.
It is. It's me.
Lean in, Alan.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay.
My name's Alan McKay. I'm a retired firefighter. I moved here 4 years ago, loving Payson because I wanted to retire here. My brother-in-law actually brought me here, so I got to blame it on him. Anyway, my whole point is I live in the impacted area of where they want to build this complex. I live at the corner of Mud Springs and Phoenix. If there is any route taken from 260 through to Beeline Highway through Phoenix Street, I'm totally against this project. simply because if you open up that corridor, those people will inundate all of those properties in that area. If that takes place, I will actually put my vehicle in the middle of that intersection and stop traffic, because I don't want that to happen in my community. The other thing is, where are you going to get the water to fill your little lake here? You're going to steal the water from the town of Payson to build your little lake? We have paid way too much for water in this town to let you build your little lake in your property. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I can tell you're not very passionate about things. First of all, I also live along Phoenix Street. I'm 1 block off of it, but I walk my dog roughly 2 miles up and down Phoenix Street every single day. Have done so now for 14 years. So if I do any kind of general math, that means I walk that dog up and down that road about 4,000 miles. So I have empathy for the people who live along that road. The west end of Phoenix Street, the west end of East Phoenix Street as it approaches the 87 is a lousy road. It's a road that's dangerous, and so the town has never elected to improve it. The people there will not allow us to improve it, and so it's going to remain a barrier. Mud Springs, from the corner of your house, to Frontier, is a narrow road that's on private property. You have an easement across it, but they don't have the ability to just go in there and widen it. Take a look at where the power pole is and where the line is and where the road is. And so we have zero interest in pushing the roundabout north to 260. Our goal is to move the traffic into where people can do it. I drive my dog in the evening to Green Valley Park. And so from where I live, I'm driving 2 miles on local streets for that dog to go to a park. If I had this park, I would be driving a half a mile. So we're aware of, we're willing to try to deal with, we're willing to try to work with the people in the neighborhood, but I can tell you that has been a concern for at least the 22 years that I've been in Payson. Sorry, two-part question, I'm sorry. The water issue. We have in this community spent $55 million to bring water down from Blue Ridge. We have, in the last 3 years, been able to recharge the water underneath the town of Payson with the great majority of that water that we bring down off the mountain. And so we have ample water here. Our challenge is Blue Ridge and the infrastructure in the town of Payson that Tanner was explaining in the last, when was it, couple of meetings ago? Couple of councils ago, the whole infrastructure and cost for that water was predicated on the town of Payson growing at a certain rate. If we don't grow, if we don't have additional uses for that water, the cost is going to go up and up and up for those of us who are here now, because the fixed cost is fixed, and it's fixed for the next, for as long as those bonds are in place. And so if we want to lower the cost, or at least lower the rate of increase of cost of water, we've got to find new uses for that water. But there are multiple sources of water in this community. And we have been negotiating with multiple members of that, and we will continue to do so. But it is not to steal water from the town of Payson or anyone else.
Okay, next up, your name, sir.
Yes, my name is Joel Mona.
Hi, Joel.
I live off of, I live on Cedar Lane, just off of Mud Springs, so I'm out in that area. First of all, I really appreciate you holding this meeting tonight. I think it's important to get this information and some of these questions answered. And I'm pretty excited about what I see out there with the park. I think it looks like it's going to be a wonderful amenity to the town. and I appreciate that RCEA is building it. I think that the people have addressed the pool pretty adequately, but I'm going to still pile on that. Obviously, the town needs an aquatic center. Sholo's got a beautiful aquatic center. The town of Miami is able to keep a pool open. It's really kind of an embarrassment that the town of Payson can't keep a pool open. I think it actually it says a lot about us as a community. We're better than that. So I guess my expectation, and I do have a question, but I really hope that the two of you are able to find an equitable agreement. And I think if you can find an equitable agreement, it'll be a success for the town. Please don't miss this opportunity. Now, a very specific question. Does the park have wireless?
Could you hear the question? The question was, is the park going to be wireless? It's more than wireless. As most of you who live in that neighborhood know, Sparklight's control tower, control center for Northeast Arizona is located right there. This will be a smart park. For those of you who know what smart cities are, look it up. It will have the ability to have free Wi-Fi. It has ramadas that are going to be built and available so people can not only enjoy the beauties of outdoor, but can enjoy the technology that's available in today's world.
Thank you.
Okay, we're more than an hour in, so we have less than an hour left. Young lady, your name?
Leanne Reynolds.
Hi.
Hi. I'm currently the swim teacher at the Tonto Apache Gym. I do it privately, freelance. I've been doing it there for some number of years, and I can tell you I am highly impacted. My schedule is fully booked, okay? There is a deep need in this town for swim lessons and for aquatic safety, and if you don't want to provide it, you will see the children in this town drown. Luckily, I have a 5-year-old who I've taught. She can swim all over the pool, she can roll on her back to breathe, she can dive to 8 feet. I have one here in my hands who will be learning to do the same. I am working with as many kids as I can get in. I'm doing my best. The question I have is, was there money borrowed from the water department to the tune of around $1 million within the last decade that was a quote-unquote loan to the town of Payson?
Kenny?
Okay, I hear a yes from the community. So the second part of that question is, where is that money? The third part of the question is, we have had our taxes here raised, which I know that people come in and pay the tourists. The tourists are paying that local tax too. I would like to hear everyone here call for an audit. I think there is financial mismanagement. I think there is money missing. Wasn't it just the town of Strawberry that had a water department scandal? Okay, so if it's happening in Strawberry with a water department scandal and people siphoning money, it could be happening here. So please, Mr. Town Manager, hire somebody to do an audit. Okay, the other thing, go ahead, I'll let you respond.
Okay, they did. Number one, your question about the money from the water department. In about 2008, 2009, 2010, the town was in a very serious recession. The whole country was in a serious recession.
Right, that timeline matches.
The year I took over as mayor, our budget was slashed by 53%. We had to operate on only 47% of what they'd operated on the year before. The water department is an enterprise fund, and I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but it's an enterprise fund with its own accounting system and own money.
I'm aware. I actually worked for the city of Garden Grove. I'm aware of
So you understand
yes,
enterprise funds?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so they had an enterprise fund that had about $10 million in it. That enterprise fund was earning the state's return. The state was paying the water department 0.12% interest, less than 1/10% of interest on that money. So the town borrowed $1 million and agreed to pay it back at 6% interest, I believe, over a 10-year period. They paid that money back with interest at 6% instead of 0.1%. And so they paid it back to the water department. The water department has their $1 million back, plus interest.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry to hear people behind me. I got a couple more questions. Bear with me.
Can you move along, because you got a lot of people
Sure
behind you.
can, doing my best.
Okay.
Chaparral Pines needs to have their rates brought up. The town pays to pump that water over there. Fix it.
Chaparral Pines.
Yes, Chaparral Pines and the golf course. It cost the water department more money to pay to operate the pumps to get water to Chaparral Pines than the revenue they generate from that. And that was a Kenny Evans deal. Yeah, don't even try and squirrel out of that.
Thank you for your question and for being perceptive enough to give me credit for it. I think if you followed the news when Mayor Morrissey was elected the first time, he put together a community committee. I wasn't on it, no one that I know was on it, but he put together a community committee to look at that water deal and how it was put together and how many millions it was saving the town because you did not have to siphon off the effluent water, that's the filtrate in that water treatment plant, and send it to the sanitation district. The sanitation district wanted $3 million up front, and it would have cost you $1.5 million to $2 million a year to send it out there. Instead, you're sending it to the golf courses where it becomes nutrient-enriched water for their golf course at a rate, by the way, which still is 50% higher than they can get other water for. And so they don't get as much of our water as we would like them to take because they've got other water that's cheaper.
Lastly, you can generate revenue off your aquatic center. I have people paying me $20, $25, $30, up to $40 for a half hour of swimming lessons. Do not think that this is upside down. Do not think that you cannot generate money on this aquatic center. It can pay for itself. And also on that, does the town, due to not having an audit, and where is our money, have the money to pay to actually fund the aquatic center once it's turned over to the town? To the tune of, what, $3-4 million annually? You guys don't know how much it costs if that study needs to be done. How much does it cost to operate an aquatic center? That question needs to be answered annually.
And it will. It will. Thank you. Next up, and I'd ask you to be a little more brief if you can. Okay, good.
All right, my name is Jim Williams.
Hi, Jim.
Tom, I've heard you on the radio saying nothing is free. So to be transparent, this is a beautiful park, and you have a lot of great ideas, but it's like buying a new car. All these people budget of how much they can spend. So in order to vote on something like this, these people need to know how much they're paying and how much it's going to go on their taxes. Because if it was all free, we would take it all, wouldn't we? All right, so it's not free, just like you say on the radio, nothing's free.
Right.
So I think we need to pick and choose what the priorities are and know the cost before we start digging deeper in our wallet for taxes.
Absolutely. The tax, I think we're taxed enough.
Right.
And
so when we're looking at little things that we think we like, it's just like getting an extra on a house. They're going to charge you. So that could start adding up into quite a bit. It's how much do we want to pay? How much do you want to pay? What would you like, and what would we maybe do without? And I mean, we got fields across the way that we don't have enough kids to play on them. We got a pool that's no good. We could redo that. I mean, we own the property, everything. That's my question, is we need to know the price of something in order to vote on it.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
But rest assured, taxes will not be raised while I'm sitting in town hall.
Well, you tell us nothing's free.
Well, nothing's free.
If it's free, we'll take it all, won't we?
But the thing is prioritization and proper management of the money. It would be the solution. But taxes are not going up, not while I'm there. I promise you that. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
The
This is really uncomfortable in a wheelchair. My name's Don. I'm a disabled Army veteran for 28 years.
Thank you for your service, Don.
And I was sitting in the back, and I was noticing my fellow Paysonian, Mr. Potts, back there. He was reading a script or a big pile of papers with his buddies back there, and
Okay, can you lean in, Don, please?
he was reading a pile of papers back there, and I just was noticing it, and Mr. Potts. And then I noticed the guy up here that was talking about us being embarrassed about not having a pool because Flagstaff and Sedona and these other communities have it. I think we should give a damn about those other communities, because this is Payson. This isn't Sedona. This isn't Flagstaff. This is Payson. So we need to be concerned about Payson, not these other communities. And the gentleman that spoke in front of me is correct. And this question would go to Mr. Evans. And when you're building a project like this, you have to have a bill of materials and a schedule of projects, and that has cost to it. Everything has a cost because it's not free, especially in construction, because you're operating heavy equipment and material. And I did this in the Army as a construction engineer. And so what is the cost? You have a projected cost, and there is a cost to this, and we need to know what that is now, because in the end, you can tell us it's not going to cost anything, sir, Mr. Mayor, but this is going to cost us. You guys want to swim, I get that. I get a swimming pool, sure, but it's going to cost us in taxes. So be prepared to eat that and enjoy it, and own it. Okay, yeah. And then who's going to own it? Are we going to get it leased back to us, or are we going to own it? Is the town of Payson going to own this? Because at one point, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Morrissey, you were saying if we wanted to own this, so we could have the infrastructure and we could pay that, which would be again another tax. And I know this is America, and we really love taxes here, right? I mean, we're getting stiff with taxes now from this current administration, so let's worry about having lower taxes, not higher taxes. And I live over on Phoenix Street, and I'm in a wheelchair, so if I have to cross the street and the road, and I have to worry about extra traffic, that's a problem for me. So this park is a pain in my arse. Okay, and so with that park, we're talking about Granitedale, Mud Springs, Miller, and then also Phoenix Street, but the roads over there suck. They are torn up. So those road beds would have to be torn out and reworked, especially on Phoenix Street, because right about where I live up towards the hill, when you go up that big hill, there's a spring that's busted, and the water continually runs down that road. And that's another cost we would have to incur as Paysonians. So I love the pool, I love the park, which I really don't, because it's going to cause problems where I live. I'm being very sarcastic. And then the last thing is the water. We're talking about bringing more people in here to Payson, out there Baby Doll Ranch, behind Walmart, and water. We're talking about our aquifer. We are wanting to grow so we can get more revenue, so we can tax the crap out of these people and fund more stuff here in town and raise our taxes again. But that water is supposed to be able to take care of people, not provide for stocked lake and all that stuff. So that's my rant. I would like to hear about the cost, if I could, for the
project? And
Okay.
then if we're going to own this thing, or are we going to be leased?
Well, we'll lay that out. Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor Morrissey. I appreciate, and I've heard you on the radio, Don, and I appreciate your continuing following of the issues. As you're keenly aware, if you're a heavy equipment operator, costs are related to what you actually end up building. And so do we have estimates and do we have money in the bank to cover it? Yes. The current best case estimate is somewhere around $5.5 million to complete the project. That will be paid for with money that is not coming from the town of Payson, either now or at any time in the future. Okay? There are things, and that's what we've talked about right at the beginning, there are things that the town is suggesting they would like to have over and above what we have already agreed that we would budget for and pay for. Okay, and those things will be a part of a lengthy discussion with staff, with the elected officials, with the Parks and Rec Commission. Do we really need it, and are we willing to pay the price for it, or can we find some other funding mechanism that will allow us to meet those needs? But for the park that you're seeing over here, that number is approximately $5.5 million, roughly $1 to $1.5 million of which is already, the checks have already gone out, and the rest of it is going to be paid for out of our accounts.
Well, if you're saying that those costs are going to be about the cost of those homes that are further down Phoenix Street, they're building some really high-end homes on the end of Phoenix Street, and I'm not guessing that they're building those for maybe
up to $1 million,
$750,000 or less. And so if you're looking at bigger buildings for the, say, you're talking about the community center plus the pool.
No. There are two topics on the agenda for tonight. Okay. Number one is the Mud Springs complex, which is Granite Dells complex.
Okay.
Okay. The second one that the mayor and I started the conversation with in the beginning about an hour and a half ago is that we will move the community center to the new location. Okay. That facility, when we were going to build it with the parameters that we had, with the needs that we had identified, and with the number of square feet that we needed for a multi-generational center, was going to be about 22 million. That building is almost doubled in size in terms of what people have come to us and said we want to have in it. And so we don't have that number because we haven't decided what has to be in it. When we do, we'll have that hard number and know what it would be. And long before we would have an agreement with the town of Payson, long before I could go to my board and say we need to fund our CEA and our CEF into building this, we'll have to know precisely what it is they want to have and how much it's going to cost.
Is it possible for the RCA, MHA to donate that back to the town of Payson?
One of the challenges, and Mayor Morrissey is keenly aware of this now, but one of the major problems of a municipality in Arizona is the Arizona Constitution, which has Article 9, which is the gift clause. And in essence, RCEA is a municipality, and it has to abide by the gift clause just like every other municipality. So the answer is somebody may be smart enough to figure out how to do it, but I cannot see, first of all, the advantage of doing it, and secondly, I cannot see with the gift clause in place how we could do it and basically gift it to the town of Payson.
Okay, next up, thank you, Don. Thank you for your service. Thank you. Your name.
My name, Lori Thompson, and I want to thank you for holding this town meeting and also for Kenny coming out today. Just a few things, and just as he mentioned too, no, I don't think we need to feel bad because Sedona has an aquatic center or because these other places, but we need to feel bad because the children and the adults and the seniors in Payson don't have a community center and a pool. So I will try to keep my statements really short, and then I do have a couple questions. Drowning is the #1 cause of accidental death for children under 4. Swimming lessons changes that by 80%. The fact that we don't have an aquatic center is, again, outrageous to our children. This past weekend, I traveled to Holbrook with a couple of swimmers from Payson. Now, we have a large number of kids who want to swim in Payson, but the only ones who can swim right now are ones that are sneaking into Tonto Gym, sneaking into Chaparral Pines, and that is the crime here. So we went to Holbrook this past weekend and saw Winslow, Holbrook, St. Joe's. Sorry. Sorry.
You bet.
Winslow. So we saw those towns with large numbers of kids on their swim team, towns that were much smaller than Payson, be able to swim. But the kids in Payson can't swim. Now, just a first question here. Mayor Morrissey, isn't it true that there were third-party people who were willing to come in and reopen Taylor Pool for this summer, which Taylor Pool was open a couple years ago with the same issues that it has today? And we had lots of kids and parents swimming in it safely. It could have been made safe this year, and there were third party. There were some people that would say it's a better idea, and the need for the pool is if they can shut the pool down to show that need. But isn't it true? Sorry. Isn't it true that there was information that other people were willing to help open the Taylor Park pool this summer?
There was information, and it was considered. But what I was advised was that it was a hazard, and that to open it would have been a great risk. Even though I agree with what you're saying, Lori, we should have a pool, and we're going to find a way to get that, okay? But to open Taylor Pool at that point in time, and I wanted to, believe me, I wanted to open it. But there's so many things that kicked in. That equipment in that pool is in pretty bad shape. And that was why the decision was made to not open it. But I share your concern on it, and it's hard for me to stand here and defend what I'm saying to you. But I believe we should have a pool. It's an important thing to send. That's why we're here talking.
Okay.
We're trying to find a way to get this done.
And I want to keep this brief so that I know we don't want to take too long, but I do want to say there were people who were willing to bring that pool up to code and make it operate. It wasn't in code a couple of years ago, and they were willing to do that with private money, but that was not done. The other thing is, when we've asked to see possible plans for the new pool, we're saying that it's way down the line, and it's not there. We had Tara Orman come up here and talk about being able to swim for high school. She doesn't have that many years. She will probably not swim again for high school. Last year we had 6 kids on the high school team who wanted to swim, and we were able to swim at Taylor. A 20-yard pool with no markings on the bottom. Those kids hadn't gone off a starting block until they got to their first meet, and they showed up. And this year they've been told they probably can't use Tonto Pool. So there probably will be no swim team this year. And by the time this pool, you're talking that you haven't even started yet, we need a feasibility study and we need a function study. You have to do programs and feasibility before you can start designing a pool. And we're hearing that agreements haven't been done. What if there is no agreement before the town? Will these kids ever get to swim? So I see kids all the time. And like was mentioned by Leanne, I do teach swim lessons at Chaparral Pines, and my phone lights up every day with people begging me to offer swim lessons to their children. And I can't, because I can only offer it to those that are, Leanne and I cannot be the only ones offering swim lessons. Kids who can't swim this summer, adults who can't do water aerobics, shame on the town of Payson for doing that.
No, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Okay.
City of Golden Grove.
Okay? There's people waiting behind you, and Lori has stated that, and as you did before, let's be considerate of other people.
So Mayor Morrissey, can you tell us what the possible timeline for this aquatic center would be?
I have no idea. And that is, I'm being as honest with you as I possibly can. All I can tell you is I want to see it get open as quickly, get something open, so that we can have swimming.
But you're looking at, I would say, 3 to 5 years at the inside on that. And if you can do it in 2 or 3, then we have to already be starting. I've done aquatic centers before, and done feasibility studies.
Yep.
And the idea that we haven't even started on design or function yet, or at least nothing that anybody's allowed to see, this thing, I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's not 3 to 5 years, but nobody else has been able to do it in that amount of time. So unless there's something that we don't know about that is not being transparent, I think we're good. So the timeline is one of my biggest questions. And yes, Taylor Pool could have been reopened this summer, and it still could be reopened, and third-party people are willing to pay if the town is willing to turn it over. Are you willing to consider a third-party program?
We'll explore every possibility and every angle that we can to get something up and running. Okay, that's all I can say to you, Lori. I want it. Believe me, I want it, and I will try to find a way to get it done. I'm not going to stand here and lie to you. I'm not going to tell you I can't get it done.
No, we don't want to be lied to, but we do. It's shame on the town of Payson for doing it this way.
Well,
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to have to move. We have a half hour left, so if you would be considerate, the line, people that are in the line now, if we can get through all of you, great. If we can't, don't be mad at me, but please go ahead.
All right,
Yes.
I have it on my phone, not because it's long, but because I am going to try to keep this short. One thing I want to point out is I know that there aren't very many people my age or with young kids at this meeting, and I think someone pointed that out earlier. And I want it to be clear that that's not because people with young families with young kids do not support this project. It's because it's not a very child-friendly meeting. It's bedtime. During the course of this meeting, my kids have made noise occasionally. There were some giggles, and they were shushed by many people here. And this attitude isn't something new. This is often how young families feel in this town, is the shush attitude. They'd rather that my kids be on the tablet and quiet and away, rather than build a park that might have the noise of people playing, or the sounds of families being together, and the cars driving for families to be together. And I just want it to be really clear that there are many young families that really need this. That, my family has been here for nearly 10 years. We've been here since we got married. This is just half of my crew. I have other children too, and we plan on staying in Payson permanently. And we are willing to fight for our children to have the opportunity to thrive, and specifically, getting to the point of this, look, I went off my thing, that's my bad, it's really important to me that my kids learn how to swim. We utilize the lakes, the creeks, the rivers, the parks. Our kids are always involved in town sports. I was at the lake earlier this week with my children, and I was taking the opportunity to try and teach them some things about swimming. We were up at Woods Canyon Lake, and it is very difficult to do that in a lake. With young kids, I had to have some strapped in a booster seat so they wouldn't drown while I'm trying to teach the other kid how to not drown. And I'm not a swim teacher. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing my best to try and teach my kids how to be safe around water so that we can fully participate in the beautiful place that we live in, so that we can fully, take our kids to places and let them enjoy it without fear of them drowning. And one thing that, Payson there's a huge deficiency in Payson that it does not have the opportunity for kids to learn these things at an aquatic center. I don't care if it's going to be at Taylor Pool, or I really love this new development to be built, but this is not just like a fun, fancy thing to add to our town just to make it more fancy, but this is a need for our kids for safety. And it's not just a project for kids, this is for all ages. And so my question really is, how can those in favor who have passionate feelings about the development of Payson and making it more family-friendly for young kids especially, how can we support this? How can we make this move along quickly and make this happen for the families and all of Payson?
By being vocal and doing what you're doing right now, coming out and expressing your support and saying what you need. what you feel you need as a parent for your children. Believe me, nobody's taking this lightly. That's why we're having this meeting. That's why the people are in this room. And that's why we're having this discussion. We're starting the journey of 1,000 miles with one step. But there's nothing, there's no rule that says we can't do it faster than has been presented. I believe that. And we've got to look at it that way.
And I do appreciate that. I can tell that we are brought in early on this project, and so that's why many of these questions have not been answered, and I appreciate that that is being done.
Thank you for being here and for representing a very large group of people here in the community. One of the heartening things, one of the things that actually brought tears to the eyes of some of our volunteers who were processing the 1,200 plus surveys that came in was the number of senior citizens who put their own interests below the interest of young families coming in and said, no, we need this for the young families who are coming to Payson. So don't feel like every old
I don't worry.
old great-great-grandfather like me, 76-year-old, is against you. We sympathize with you. We sense your needs, and we realize that one day you're probably going to be paying our Social Security, so we need to take care of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, identify yourself, Dave.
Dave Golombiewski. I'm on the Parks and Recs board with Lori and Steve back here. First on the first on the Granite Dells Park. I've talked to Kenny about it, and I would like Star Valley to pitch in, being they are on the RCEA board with Payson, so I would like them to pitch in equally if they can. And I would like the county to pitch in. There's plenty of county parks, and they have pitched in some money for Star Valley's park. I like parks. That's why I'm on the Parks and Recs. I love parks. Me and Kenny have talked about the park. I appreciate he threw in the softball field because we need more softball fields. Okay, but let me get on to the pool. My job on the Parks and Recs, I feel like it's kind of a sham because we have never got to vote on anything like closing the pool at Parks and Recs, splash pad, canceling it, nothing for the kids. It's just brought, the director of the parks takes it to the council with the committee chair, and nobody's voice on the council, on the Parks and Recs is ever heard. We might be heard, but it's not conveyed to the council. But what I was going to say is I'm all for the park if out of our $49.5 million budget, we can come up with $500,000 and fix Rumsey Pool or Taylor Pool. Okay, maybe the MHA can donate the $500,000 or the town can come up with it, but I want $500,000 for our pool first. Then let's proceed with that park. Because I don't want to promise these little kids that we're going to swim by 2030. I'll take bets that we don't swim before 2030. So as far as the rec center and pool, I want to fix up our pool, our Rumsey Park, and then proceed with the park. So if you can figure out both, I'm all for the park. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Steve?
My name's Steve Otto.
Hi, Steve.
And every time there's a water project put forth, C.C. Cragen's always listed as the panacea, that we've spent $54 million to get all this water out of C.C. Cragen. So I went on the internet last night. C.C. Cragen is empty. It's at the 20% minimum pool. The town of Payson had to shift to wells only. We're patting ourselves on the back that we've recharged 60 feet of the aquifer, but nobody mentions that we took the aquifer down 200 feet. So it's getting old. All we have is 3,000 acre feet out of the Cragen Reservoir. For that money, if that project lasts 50 years, every acre foot of that water costs the town of Payson $500. And then we're talking about, well, we're going to find water somewhere. It needs to be listed where we're going to find water to build a lake. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if you can move along, we're getting short on time, so.
Hi, Greg Dix. I'm just a little confused as to far as what jurisdiction this land falls under. Is it under Town of Payson municipality? Is it under Star Valley? Is it county? Is it state? This 260 acres, what does it fall under?
It's a separate legal entity. It's completely separate. Similar to fire districts, in some ways similar to Native American reservations.
Who's going to be in charge of doing the inspections? I mean, we've already built one pool that apparently wasn't built correctly. We're planning on building another pool. Be nice to know if we do it, it was built correctly. So what municipality is going to do inspections as far as building code?
Well, there will have to be a building code, but Kenny, you want to answer that?
The SLE has its own codes. When it was created in 2011, it adopted the codes of the town of Payson as its own, so it had its own codes that were parallel with the town of Payson. Over a period of a few years, some of those simply don't apply to a smaller entity that has no population, no people, no houses. So it was tweaked and amended, but they have their own code, and it is to the same standards for the fire code, same standards for public safety and those things that the town of Payson has, but it is in fact the separate legal entities code. Okay, so it has that code. We hire the town of Payson inspectors to go in and inspect the things that we do to make sure that they're up to code. That agreement with the change in town managers expired at the end of last year. The current town manager and our group are working to renew that inspection agreement. It's I believe, about a 60-page agreement that spells out every inspection and the cost that the town gets reimbursed, the amount of money we write as a check to the town for doing those inspections. Okay. So the inspections are done. In the interim, we've hired one of the contract inspectors that does inspections for the 3 big cities in the Valley of the Sun to come up here and do those inspections until we can get this agreement done with the town of Payson in place again.
Okay, that answers that.
Okay, young lady.
Hi, I'm Vera Jean. I'm the one who just sent you a letter, Mr. Mayor, about...
Would you lean into the mic so we can hear you?
Oh,
we can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I'm Vera Jean. I'm the one that just sent you a letter about that insurance, that you had a letter come out about insurance, about having pipes repaired in our homes.
Yes.
Yeah. I wrote that letter to you.
Oh, you wrote that letter? Okay, put in the face of the letter.
So now you hear from me again. First of all, I want to thank both of you for what you're doing tonight. That's what we need more of, and I think we all really, there are a lot of us here.
Thank you for saying that.
And I think we need that more. I think it's a great thing to do. But I will say to you, I remember when you first were running for office, I was hesitant, and I then remembered you said that you would not allow a certain school, a boys' prep school, to come in and buy some land and use part of Rumsey Park for an ice rink. Do you remember that? That was just about 4 years ago? And you said you would not support that, and you didn't. It was proposed by the previous mayor. And I thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and then if you go back further, probably before your investment, Kenny, the YWCA or YMCA wanted to put in a whole activity center at Rumsey Park. Do you remember that? Yes. Remember that? And we had it talked about, and we had petitions out, and the town said no. So there have been issues before, and the town has always said no. Now, Kenny, I know some of the investors. I think what you've been working on has been a long haul. When did you first get that land from the Forest Service? When was that? 2015? Okay. You've worked really hard to pull that together. You have a group of investors, and investors want refunds. Investors want to make money. People don't invest if they don't want to make more money. So basically, this is simple. I'm not going to go with statistics, and I appreciate what anybody said here with the statistics. I appreciate that, and I learned from that. And I also liked hearing from the young people. There are a lot of us old folks, but it was nice hearing from the young people and their perspective too. So, go ahead, Kenny.
And your question was, who are the investors and what do they want?
Okay, it's hard for me to hear the backup.
Your question was, who are the investors and what do they want their money back?
Yes, I'm just commenting on that. So, it's hard to conceive that you can do this on your own without the town somehow being in a relationship with that. And I don't agree with that. I think any investment group is responsible to do whatever they want to build, get the building permits that they need, put up what you want, and then sell your product. And then negotiate with a town, with an association, with whomever, and that's the way you make your money. If you run it well, we would work with you well. But I don't think that the town should be part of this arrangement, because that is not what our town's job is to do. We are not investors in this town. The town is not set for investments of that sort. And I think that's what should happen. I think a rec center would be great. Build whatever you think you could do and whatever you think that would make your investors happy. But then we will negotiate you with the town, as a town, and with our mayor and our council, and we will think about it and talk about it and see how to work with you after you've built this. And we would negotiate with the schools might negotiate with you, but I don't think it's our job to find satisfaction for a group of investors. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you very much, though, and thank you very much, Mr. Bear. Okay, bye.
Thank you for following and for being aware of a number of the initial stages of this organization. In 2008, in 2008, 2009, 2010, up until 2012, we did have people who were investors who had put substantial amount of money into trying to bring this to pass. The Winners Group spent substantial amount. The parent organization for them had spent substantial amounts trying to bring this to pass. They walked away and have no financial involvement at all, none, nor any recourse for the monies they spent. They spent their money with their eyes open, exploring the possibility of bringing this project into Payson. When that did not happen, they walked away. So the money that's being put out is not from any investor. It's not from anybody who wants that money back. The hundreds, literally, we had 170 people in our community who stepped up and spent $700,000 doing the environmental studies, doing the impact study, doing the Archie studies, doing the paperwork to get to the point of being able to buy that property. Not a single one of those either took a tax write-off for that contribution or did they ask for their money back. It was a contribution made for the benefit of the community with no expectation that it was an investment. Okay, and some spent significant amounts of money because they believed in the concept. The money that we're talking about spending is not the 5.5 million, up to maybe as much as 7 million in these first stages, is not money that we're expecting to get paid back, either by the town or by its citizens. The town will organize and decide whether they can operate these facilities. Okay, if they can, great. We'll have a partnership and we'll go forward. But they will never be expected to repay any of the capital costs that went into building this facility. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Your name?
Yeah, my name is Richard Ormond, and for the last 5 years, I was the athletic director at Payson High School and Rim Country Middle School. I'm also an Army veteran. Seems like that carries some weight, saying you're a veteran. But anyways,
it does. You bet.
My daughter Tara spoke earlier, and I'm I don't believe she's going to have a pool to swim in before she graduates high school. I don't think that's going to happen unless we do what the gentleman said earlier, and let's refurbish and open Taylor Pool in the meantime. I think that would be a great investment. It's not wasting money. It's for our kids. We've already gone 2 summers without a pool. We're looking at 3, 4, 5 more summers without one with this project. I would love to see this project come forward, but I think we should go forward with trying to reopen Taylor Pool in the meantime. I think it can happen. I think that there are people in town that would actually invest in that and donate for that. I know one person individually that would probably give $100,000. I heard the term earlier where it said we don't have enough kids to use the fields we have. That is absolutely not true. I have spent the last 5 years scheduling fields for teams, scheduling gymnasiums for teams. When you come into a basketball season and you got 6 basketball teams at the high school, 4 basketball teams at the middle school, and 3 gymnasiums, you don't have enough gymnasiums. When you come into the fall and you have 3 high school football teams, 2 middle school football teams, and 1 football field, you don't have enough facilities. And on top of that, in the fall, you have 2 girls soccer teams, 2 high school, in the high school, 2 boys soccer teams. You don't have, and 1 field, you don't have enough. They say, oh, well, they got the field over at Rumsey. Well, when we have to schedule and use the town parks, we have to go whatever time is available. I've had to tell my coaches, yeah, you get to practice 3 days this week, 4 days this week. Oh, and by the way, you get an hour to hour and 15 minutes to practice. It's because there are youth programs using those fields, there are adult leagues using those fields, and I am very happy that we have the agreement that we have with the town to try and schedule fields for our teams. But we do not have enough. We do not have enough fields. We need more fields. We need a pool. We need a convention center or a community center with a gymnasium in it so that we can also utilize that for practice time and game times. We could, if we had enough soccer fields up here, we could have tournaments up here all the time, bring more revenue into our towns, people spending money at our restaurants, money at our hotels, more softball tournaments. It's unlimited. Now, my question to you, with this new thing, and you want to build a couple fields, which is great, if you're not going to have lights on those, they don't benefit the high school. How is that going to alleviate the scheduling and need for our high school teams in conjunction with our middle school teams and our youth leagues, all needing the fields at the same time? Why can't we have lights on those fields? That's one question. My second question is, why can't we open Taylor Pool in the meantime?
Dealing with the lights, there are a few places in town that are flat enough that you can actually build ball fields. This wasn't one of them, by the way. If you've been over there, we'll move almost 50,000 yards of dirt to be able to build the fields that we're building. But in the process of doing that, we are so encircled and embedded in that community that the impact on the people who live right there would be too great to make that a lighted field. It'll be big enough. It'll be great for practices. It'll be great for anything that you can use during the day. But the other fields that we anticipate building will be lighted, and they will be in places where they will fit within the town's general plan, and at the same time provide you with the extra 2 ball fields that we think you need.
Okay, we got to move on, okay? I appreciate your input, though, and they were good questions.
Okay, what about my question about the pool?
Well, that's something I'm not going to tell you something I can't answer, but we will look at it. I think it's a great idea. It seems like what a lot of people want, so that's not going to be disregarded. So let's see what we can do in the meantime. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Mayor Evans, for this event. It's an important event. My name is Steve Smith. I'm a retired U.S. Army colonel for 32 years, combat veteran, disabled veteran. I have a couple of questions about what you've talked about, and I'm going to try to stay on the agenda items, unlike about 30% of the others that haven't. I think that there could
If you could do it in 5 minutes, I'd appreciate it.
I think that there could be confusion with regards to these current fields that are actually being under construction. Is there any expectation from the town of Payson to operate or manage this new Granite Dells Park? That's my first question.
I'm not sure the verb you're using when you say expectation. They came to us and said, we would like to visit with you about what's being built, what needs to be there, and whether we can partner with you in the project. So on one side, I suppose we could negotiate and come up with a plan where they completely run the facility and all the revenue that's generated off that facility would go to them. On the other side, it may be as simple as an agreement that they would have access to the fields. And so all I can tell you is those negotiations are going on. They're intense. The town is representing the interest of the town, and RCEA is representing the interest of RCEA and its group.
So, Mr. Mayor Evans, I want to follow up on that response. So, if for some reason the town of Payson and the RCEA cannot come to an agreement on the operations of this new Granite Dells Park, will the RCEA operate that park and maintain it so that Payson residents can use it?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I've said to anyone that will listen to me, it was never our intent to have that park be a park for us. We're only a board of 8 people. We don't need a park. We're doing this for the community, and so I'm trying to walk a very fine line. A quick story. I was in the 11th grade, and a bully in the class was constantly bullying me around, and I made the mistake of telling him if he did it again, I was going to punch him in the nose. And the next thing I knew, I was seeing stars and looking up at the sky. When you're negotiating with somebody, you don't say, if you don't do this, I'm going to do that. What we're saying is we're negotiating intensely with the town of Payson about operating these fields. They're not our only option about having this be an amenity that will benefit all the people in the town of Payson, but they are our preferred option.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My second question then is with regards to and to make sure that everybody understands, these two projects that we're talking about tonight are entirely separate and distinct. Is that correct?
They're entirely separate and distinct in terms of the engineering and the infrastructure costs that will go into them and how that'll have to come together, yes.
And so the hope is that, and as Mayor Morrissey brought up, this is an opportunity. This appears to be a positive opportunity for the town of Payson.
His term was P3, and P3s are the model that we have to be able to embrace to make this work for the town, for the people's town, without impacting their taxes, but still providing them with the amenities they want.
And so I do appreciate you bringing this to our attention. And one final comment, somebody that said that we're ignoring all the existing resources that we have in the town. I don't think that that is a correct statement. We've just redone the Little League fields, the softball fields, we've redone the baseball fields, we've redone the practice soccer field. We put in a new playground at Green Valley Park. We put in a new basketball court. We put in new pickleball courts. And this was all happening in these last 2 years. So I think, we do have a problem over there with restrooms and so on. But thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate you guys bringing this to the attention of the town.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, last two. Janet?
My name's Janet Williams. Mr. Smith addressed several of the things that I wanted to say, but apparently it sounds like it's going to be a private investment, but the town of Payson potentially is going to run it. So are we able financially to maintain another park? Like he was just speaking about, the bathrooms and other things aren't kept up. The pool was let go. I was in Cottonwood a few months ago. Their pool was built in 1980 and it's perfectly functioning. It's, it's used for competition. So we let ours go. And so financially, who's going to be responsible for the irrigation and maintaining this new facility over there at Granite Dells? If it's going to be the town of Payson, how are we going to be ensured that we can financially do something like that?
Well,
where's the number? I mean, when are we going to be able to see numbers?
Okay, well, we're working. You know, the thing is, you're asking for specifics, Janet, that the only thing we can do is hope that we can come up, with an agreement that will meet the needs and the challenges that we face. But the thing is, getting into the weeds on this, you're asking, well, who's going to do what? That remains to be seen. That's why we're having this meeting. That's why there's a negotiation going on, to see if we can come up with an agreement.
So if the town of Payson can't do it, then the SLE decides somebody else is going to do it, it'll be built.
Well, the options are still being explored. The end game here is to bring a pool, to bring a community center, to bring what's needed to the town. That's the object. That's the ends. We're involved right now in the means and still trying to determine that. So okay. I'm not going to stand here and tell you anything other than what I can say to you that I know as a fact. But,
all right, so we still don't know anything. And then the last thing, and it doesn't have anything to do with the SLE, but we're doing a park and we're doing a pool, which I totally agree with everybody. We need one. But we don't have anywhere to have, I mean, we have a multi-event center that's dirt and outhouses. I mean, we can't even have a concert in this town. We can't have any place for a meeting. I guess the high school, if anyone can afford the insurance. So now we're taking on this, and yet we have, that's part of our Western heritage for 100 years, and it's nothing.
Well, so far it's nothing, but well, it is something. But we're talking apples and oranges with that. But that's something that will be improved. That the event center is well worth it. Yes, sir. You're last but not least.
My name is David Luton. I moved here about 1.5 years ago.
Hi, David.
I'm not understanding this concept of transparency. Mr. Evans has talked about how the entities have been working on the plans for this for over 2 years, and this is the first that the town has really heard of it. So my question to you, Mayor, is at one of your recent mayor chats, you said that you had to sign some NDAs early on, and after a certain point you stopped signing those NDAs. So I'm wondering if any of this stuff here was covered by any of those NDAs.
No.
My second comment is there seems to be this elephant in the room that nobody is really talking about. What is happening is this thing is starting to be built, and it's been planned for over 2 years. But the elephant in the room is that by building this and finishing it, the town is going to be forced to pay for the upkeep and maintenance on it, and we're not given any numbers as to what those numbers are. So I just feel like that's not being transparent by building it first and then throwing it over to the town and say, okay, you guys pay to run this thing.
That's not going to happen. I mean, the reason why we're here and we're discussing this is to put everything on the table so that everything is there. I mean, when you have transparency, you don't have a problem. What we're doing, this is the beginning of a process that will allow everybody to know what's going on and what the options are, what the possibilities are. This is not a cut deal. What we're here to find out is how much the town wants, what the town wants, and to try to find a way to get it done. It's as simple as that. And Kenny, if you want to add to this, but the whole thing is the reason why we are here is to discover what it is that we want to do as a town and what it is we can do as a town, and not miss an opportunity if there's an opportunity there. But I'll let the former Mayor Evans say something on that too.
I appreciate the fact you've been here a year and a half, you say?
Yes.
And your name was again?
David Luton.
David, I'm glad that you're getting involved. That's a major step forward for someone to jump in, and I cannot imagine what it would be like to try to understand all that's gone on in the last decade and try to do it all in a cram session in 18 months. What we're saying, you drive a car?
Yes.
A fairly new car?
Yes.
If I said to you, okay, I'll buy you a new Chevy Malibu, here's the keys to it. You don't have to pay anything for the car, but you have to pay for the tires and the upkeep and the oil changes and all that. Would you say yes or no? Not a trick question. The point.
No, I wouldn't. So
the point I'm making is we're prepared to cover the entire capital costs. Okay, we're covering the capital costs. Okay, and what are we getting out of it? A park for 8 people? That's why I said a park for 8 people. Wow, we really need a lot of park for 8 people. That's all we have on our board. We try to represent the community. What we're getting out of it is a philanthropic sense that this is accomplishing something the town of Payson needs to have done. We're not limited just to the town of Payson operating this facility, okay? And if the town of Payson chooses to say, no, we don't think it makes sense for us to be the operator of this $5 million or $7 million facility, someone else will operate it, okay? Someone else will operate it. There are revenue streams there that will allow someone else to operate the facility so the town will not have to, and it will be made available to the patrons, to the people living in this community.
So getting back to your question to me, if you were going to give me a car, yeah, I would do that because I would know what the costs are. A better comparison would be to say, well, I have a boat out here. Do you want the boat? But you just have to pay the cost, and you don't tell me what the boat is. I'm not going to accept a boat when I don't know what the costs are.
We're showing them exactly what it is, and we're moving forward with it. And they have a choice of saying, we see what you're building. We're working with their town staff to make sure that it's built to the specs that they would build it if they were building it. And by the way, it'll have the same kind of sprinkler heads and the same kind of lawnmower, etc. So we're not giving them something out there blind. We're allowing them to see what's being built, how it's being built, and do they want to or do they not want to step in and manage that for the benefit of the Payson, the citizens of the town of Payson.
So if the town says, no, we don't want to pay to run this, what happens to that facility?
That facility will be run by someone else. It will be run. And the town by the way, the town could also choose to find that third party to run it for them if they chose to take it over. So it's not, gee, only the town of Payson Parks and Rec is the only entity out here who could possibly run a park like this. That's not a truism, okay?
Okay, I think we've come to the end of the line for tonight. I want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to thank you for waiting to express your opinions, and I want you to know that I hear you, and we hear you. And the main objective here, again, folks, is the ends. we are working with the means right now. So hearing what you have to say and you hearing what we have to say, I hope clears up some of the misunderstandings and the misinformation that's out there. And I know that there's a lot of things that you want to see done. I hear you on the pool, on something to get us through till there is something more stable and more fulfilling. But it was good that, I know from my point of view, hearing what you had to say tonight, it has an impact. And I want to thank you all for coming and say God bless you, and I hope to see you again real soon. We're not done talking, all right? Take care.